What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Renegade Marquee on the Renegade Pop Culture Podcast Network. My name is Mike. I'll be your host for this evening. Joining me, as always, is the Streamin Demon, Jacob.
The name is Crable. Jacob Crable.
And making his Renegade Pop Culture debut, please welcome Matthew Kearns.
Jacob stole my intro, so I'm shaken but not stirred by that.
Sorry, man.
As you can tell, we are here to review the 25th installment of the James Bond franchise, as well as Daniel Craig's fifth and final performance as the titular MI6 agent. We're talking about No Time to Die. This movie is directed by Cary Fukunaga, the first, to my knowledge, the first American director in the franchise, and written by Fukunaga, Neil Purvis, Robert Wade, and Phoebe Waller-Bridge. So in this film, James Bond is enjoying a tranquil life in Jamaica after leaving active service. However, his peace is short-lived as his old CIA friend, Felix Leiter, shows up and asks for help. The mission to rescue a kidnapped scientist turns out to be far more treacherous than expected, leaving Bond on the trail of a mysterious villain who's armed with a dangerous new technology. So before we get into the film proper, Matt, I have to ask you first, your overall thoughts on, at the very least, Daniel Craig's tenure, but you can extend that to the Bond franchise as a whole.
I'll just for right now, I'll just talk about my feelings on the Daniel Craig franchise. I'm very lukewarm to it. I'm a real old school Bond fan. Like, my Bonds are like Sean Connery, Timothy Dalton, and Craig stuff. They're really cool, like action movies, but as like Bond movies, none of them are really my favorites. The way Craig's Bond just doesn't really click with me. So yeah, ultimately he's above Roger Moore in my rankings, but then again, a lot of Bond stuff is above a lot of Roger Moore stuff. But we'll get into my feelings on this most recent intro. I don't hate Daniel Craig, but I hate having to use this phrase. He's not my Bond.
That's fair. Jacob, what about you? Since I know you've actually been watching all of the Bond movies throughout the year.
Yeah. I gotta say, I love the Bond movies, man. I just can't get enough of them. I know I don't love them all equally, obviously, but they're just a good time, man. I just love the motifs. I love the tropes. I love the action. I love the gadgets. I just love the intensity. I just love, at least the best ones that they provide. I think the best ones are when it brings the franchise to a darker direction, to a more serious, like, yeah, I like Daniel Craig's Bond personally. I think it's not entirely fair to compare him to the Connery, Lazenby, Moore, Dalton Brosnan Bond, just because this one's aiming to tell an arc, essentially. It's about one character's arc throughout an entire movie, and I think Craig, he does that well. I just love the sophistication of his movies. I love how they actually attempt to add like real dramatic weights to the stories. Yeah, and I personally thought this was a good cap on it.
Yeah, so I've told Matt this before earlier, but I'm kind of a casual Bond fan in that I haven't seen all of the movies. I'm familiar enough with some of the Connery classics like Thunderball, From Russia with Love, and Goldfinger, but my era of James Bond is Daniel Craig. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love the GoldenEye Nintendo 64 game that I played a lot growing up. But Daniel Craig, his films, there's just something about like the way that his films have like modernized the character. Take like they've taken the dark and gritty approach, and yet these movies are all still like, they're still fun in their own right. I love the relationship that he has with Judi Dench as M.
Oh yeah.
I love I love the brutality of the action scenes, but how they still manage to like to use all of like the typical Bond tropes, like in pretty much every movie, and yes, including Quantum of Solace. The Bond villains are all have like their unique quirks and personalities to them. I think my favorite villains are Mads Mikkelsen as Le Chiffre, and while I don't necessarily love the film as a whole, I think Christopher Waltz as Blofeld is probably the like perfect casting.
And how can one forget Javier Bardem?
Oh, of course. Yeah. He probably plays one of the more unique Bond villains, just because of where the story goes, his relationship
he's more a villain for M than he is Bond, which I like.
Yeah, and that's why I'd consider Skyfall my either my number 2 or number 3 of the Craig era, because it really puts the spotlight on M. And it also helps that, there was a lot of pomp and circumstance surrounding Skyfall. Not only was it the 50th anniversary of the franchise, but it was Judi Dench's final performance. So they really went all out on that one.
By the way, Judi Dench is the M that's so iconic. She played M in both different continuities.
Yep.
She played the Pierce Brosnan M, and now she transpired into the Daniel Craig M.
And she's great. And she's great in both of them.
Yeah.
And then, of course, what Skyfall introduces is Ben Whishaw as our Q.
Yeah.
We've got the new M, played by Ralph Fiennes. And from Skyfall onward, these movies kind of like how the MCU organically transitioned from Iron Man being a little bit more grounded to Endgame dealing with Thanos, and there's magic, aliens, and all sorts of craziness in the MCU now. It's not quite that extreme in the Bond movies, but once we talk about No Time to Die, that movie feels more like a traditional Bond movie.
Yeah, that was the thing about Skyfall, was it I feel like the first two, Casino Royale and Quantum of Solace, they were very I always say they Batman Begins it, which is not an insult. They took it to a more realistic depiction, similar to what Chris Nolan did with Batman, and that was great. But I think they understood, and I think especially with it being the 50th anniversary, I think they understood that there was a collection of fans who have been around since before 1962 with the books, but particularly with Dr. No. And I felt like it was a really good marriage of sort of what Casino Royale and Quantum of Solace set up, but then also the older school stuff. And they kind of just kept that going. Obviously, with Spectre having Blofeld and Spectre just in general in the following film. And even this one, I think they sort of kept that, like, the gadgets were back. I felt not more quippy. He never got as quippy as say like Roger Moore, but I felt like there were a couple more quips, which I like. So that's why I liked Skyfall. I remember when I saw it, I was like, oh, okay. Like just the intro with Q and the reference to the exploding watch just like made me laugh. And I loved that so much.
By the way, Skyfall was the first Daniel Craig film that I saw in theaters. And I think that's why I hold that one a little bit higher, in a little higher regard. Before that, I didn't even see Casino Royale or Quantum of Solace till later. But I think what makes Skyfall perfect is more so than the other Craig films. This one really does kind of stand on its own. Like, yeah, certain elements are carried over because his whole era has been one large story arc. But you could go into this one cold and just kind of take it for what it is, just like any other Bond movie in the past.
I forget, Skyfall also introduced Moneypenny, and probably my favorite Moneypenny.
Yeah, Naomi Harris.
I gotta give it up to Skyfall. Yeah, she's fantastic. She probably is my favorite. I mean, there's been a lot of great Moneypennys, but she's probably my favorite.
Yeah.
She definitely feels the most like a like a fully fleshed out character.
Yeah, not just a secretary who flirts with Bond.
Well, Moneypenny in particular, the sort of Connery Roger Moore, she always just represented this life Bond was never gonna have. Like Bond was never gonna there's the moment in Diamonds Are Forever where she asks Bond to bring her back a diamond and ring. Like he's never gonna do that. He's never gonna be that guy. And I like that this Moneypenny, she was in the field for a bit and she goes toe to toe more with Bond. Although then again, the Pierce Brosnan one did as well. I forget that actress's name, but particularly in GoldenEye, she gave it to Bond as well. So they've done a good job updating Moneypenny in the more recent iterations of Bond.
That they have. Although, if I'm gonna be completely honest, I'm not sure if any of the modern Bond girls have ever surpassed Eva Green's Vesper Lynn.
I saw this on Twitter. I saw this. I knew you were gonna bring her up.
I had to.
Well, Tracy from On Her Majesty's Secret Service is up there too, but I know you haven't seen that one, Mike.
Yeah, I'm gonna get to that one eventually, but
that's a really fantastic Bond movie.
Yeah, it's in a tight race to be my personal favorite.
Oh, that's a solid choice for number one, honestly. It's an often forgotten film, unfortunately. Poor George.
It's got an audience since then. It has a lot of people appreciate it now.
Yeah, it's definitely when it came out, I think the problem was that Sean Connery was James Bond, and then the unfortunate thing was they went right back to him. So it kind of just got lost in the shuffle.
Yeah. George Lazenby, we'll talk about that later though. About Lazenby and such.
But Eva Green, she is great. She's one of the things I enjoyed about Casino Royale, for certain. She's not my favorite Bond girl, but she certainly is. I can see why she is everybody else's, like number ones. Or I shouldn't say everybody else's, but a lot of people's.
Right. And the only reason I had to bring her up is because one of the criticisms I had about Spectre was that as much as I love Lea Seydoux as an actress, I didn't quite feel the chemistry that she had with Daniel Craig in that movie. But in No Time to Die, and by the way, guys, we are talking full spoilers. In No Time to Die, like one of the big improvements is their chemistry has gotten like significantly better, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. Because that was always my thing was with Spectre was it's not that they had horrible chemistry, but the problem was that movie ends with like her being the one that like gets him to leave. And again, it's not that she's bad, but she's just like, really? Whereas in this movie, I felt like, oh, okay, now I understand it. Like I feel like the writers definitely like knew that they had to improve that in this movie. I think they certainly like now when I watch this more like, okay, now I can see why Bond left everything for her.
Even like right from the get-go, like they managed to flesh her out. The very first scene in No Time to Die is the scene where she has her mother killed, and where Rami Malek kills her.
We'll get to Malek in a second, but I do love the opening scene in this movie.
Yeah.
It's probably the most different cold open that we've seen in any
it doesn't
in any
focus
Bond
on
film.
Bond. It focuses on another character.
Even the gun barrel sequence was different because it didn't have the blood coming down. It just zoomed in into the barrel on the white circle that Bond's in, which I liked that. Actually, that I'm surprised no one thought of it sooner.
Yeah, and anytime you get to kind of play around with the tropes like that, is always appreciated. But yeah, more on the opening scene. I think this is just a great showcase for what Cary Fukunaga can do when given a $250-300 million budget. Like you see all of that money on the screen. Matt, what'd you think about the opening sequence?
Well, the opening sequence, for one day, it's particularly longer than some other ones. I mean, the Bond openings have always been before you get the title card, but it was cool, and I like the fact that you sort of get that sort of flashback, and then you sort of go into where they are with their relationship, and then you get callback to Eva Green, you get callback to Spectre, and then you get the great action sequence with the beautiful Aston Martin, which is always a pleasure to see in any Bond film when it pops up. And it was great. It was exciting. Watching it in Dolby, it was incredible. The moment when they're getting shot and he turns on the machine guns and just spins around.
Yeah, and when the bullets are piercing through the glass windows, and there's that tension that those windows are gonna shatter any minute now, and just like I just loved that.
Yeah. It was great, and Christoph Waltz being a little shit as Blofeld on the phone was always a pleasure from Spectre.
Oh yeah. Just seeing Blofeld kind of play the he's almost playing like the Hannibal Lecter role when he's in the prison cell.
Oh yeah, when he's in that cell and he's like, and the cell is slowly gliding towards Bond and Madeline, and like in Madeline she's like freaking out, like and then there's that music, that Hans Zimmer score that plays as he's just creeping further and further. It's just great, that part. Christoph Waltz, yeah. So my preferred Blofeld will always be Donald Sutherland, and You Only Live Twice.
Ooh, that's a really good casting for Blofeld.
Yeah, but Christoph Waltz, he holds on his own. Although I'm not crazy about the twist in Spectre that he and Bond were brothers.
Yeah,
that was like, guys, really?
It's the only thing I like seriously dislike about Spectre.
And they say that Blofeld planned all this long. You mean he planned this since he was a kid?
Yeah, the like that twist is one of the very few things that just don't work. Even
what'd you think about that, Matt? Did you like that at all?
No, not at all. look, I think there are a lot of great movies where the hero and villain are related in some way. You know, Star Wars, obviously one of the most famous. More recently, the Ben Affleck film The Accountant. I thought that was a great example of having the sort of antagonist and protagonist be related, but it was just unnecessary. And also for a series that, Blofeld was not a villain that, was like Mads Nicholson that was kind of, created just for that movie. Like, he's a long-standing villain. Anyone who's followed the Bond series knows who Blofeld is.
Yeah, he's one of the most parodied. He's one of the most parodied villains of all time. Like, everyone knows Doctor Evil, for instance. Like,
Yeah.
and of course, it was inspiration for Dr. Claw and Inspector Gadget too, because of the cat.
It was just unnecessary. It was also something in a movie that was kind of complicated enough. It was just an unneeded. It didn't add anything to the movie for me. If anything, it took me more out of the film.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. But even like despite that, I still enjoyed Spectre more on the rewatch just for the spectacle of it. But bring up Spectre again, and just kind of it goes back to my point about No Time to Die being. I don't want to say this is like the mulligan for Spectre, but I think this movie does a lot. It does a lot more to elevate everything that's come before it. Even bringing back Jeffrey Wright one more time to play Felix Leiter.
Yeah, he's easily the best Felix, because none of the previous Felixes really left that much of an impression. He was basically just Bond's CIA buddy.
Matt, your thoughts on Jeffrey Wright's Felix coming back?
I've always liked Jeffrey Wright's Felix ever since Casino Royale. That relationship him and Bond have is great, and Jeffrey Wright's just one of those. He's just one of those fun actors that you always enjoy seeing. I really like David Hedison from License to Kill. I really liked his Felix and the relationship him and James have in that film. But Jeffrey Wright's great, and we are talking full spoilers, so I did feel it when he died. Like, I felt it. It was rough, because you're like, why? Like, I know we're in that kind of movie, but still, why? Like, I knew nothing good could come from being on a boat that's established in the middle of nowhere, and they're talking in a very small, confined space. I knew nothing good was going to come from that, but still.
Yeah, no, that scene gave me a lot of anxiety, because I wanted nothing more than for Felix to survive and to play a bigger role in the rest of the film. But obviously given where we were, like, I think that was like either the end of the first act or like just the start of the second. We still had like at least an hour and a half more to go. So I figured if he's like not doing well here, you're not going to see him again.
Yeah. Strangely enough, what kind of made that scene work was kind of the banter between Bond and Felix. For some reason, just because to them it was another situation, even though deep down they knew that it was something bigger. And we gotta bring up this line from Quantum of Solace alone made this Felix stand out from others. It's when Bond says, "It always impressed me the way you boys would carve this up and plan, the CIA and stuff." And Felix says, "I'll take that as a compliment coming from a Brit." Ouch.
So something I've always kind of liked about the Craig era Bond films is that other than Felix, the CIA are never treated as like the good guys. They're always in bed with the wrong people. Although
Like
in this
computer
although in this
just is
movie,
getting scanned.
yeah, yep. Although in this movie, I think one of the best additions, and it's unfortunate that she only gets one scene, is Ana de Armas.
Oh, she was fantastic.
I know the Broccolis will never do spin-offs that aren't like direct sequels, but man, if anyone deserves like a spin-off, it would be her character.
Yeah, if she was in more of the movie, she could have possibly taken out Moneypenny for being my favorite Bond girl, the Craig era. She was fantastic. I mean, she's been I first saw her in Blade Runner 2049, and she's just one of those actresses who everything else I see her in, even if I don't love the movie, I always think she's fantastic in it.
Yep. Yeah, Blade Runner 2049 is probably like the best first impression that anyone could have for that actress. Something we haven't brought up yet is in the years that Bond has retired, we got a new 007 played by Lashana Lynch. Her name is Nomi in the film, and yeah, she is the new she's the new 00 agent. And
which, by the way, does not mean that she is Bond's replacement in the franchise.
Right.
Okay. I'm just saying that drew a lot of bad faith criticism when that was announced.
Bad faith criticism on the internet must be a day that ends in Y.
Yeah.
No, but seriously, Lashana Lynch is so awesome as this new agent. Like she doesn't get that much to do compared to Craig, obviously, but when she does get to kick ass, it's great.
I loved her and Bond's like the scene when they're waiting to go into M's office and everyone's calling her 007. She's like, "Does that bother you?" And then Moneypenny's like, "You could go in." She's like, "Just Bond." And he goes, "Oh, I'm sorry. Does that bother you?" Like that was fantastic. Like it felt like I'm not even sure if I can't even think of a comparison, but it just felt like going back to your old high school if you were like the cool kid and meeting the new cool kid, which by the way, I have no clue what that would be like. But I feel like if I did know what that would be like, it'd be a similar thing of just like, oh, I was top dog, but now you are. What is this? I don't like this. But Bond's not gonna let her know that it bothers him. He's trying to play off when in reality you're like, he kind of hates that everyone's calling her 007 because he's like, that's my number. But when she was like, oh, wait, did you think they were going to retire it? Which, as a hockey fan, I thought they might have.
By the way, this was the most clever use.
Rafters of MI6.
By the way, this was the most clever use of Bond's catchphrase ever. When he comes in, like he's about to talk with Ray Fiennes, and he goes to the guy behind the desk, and he says, the guy's like, "Do you have a name?" Like, so he can print a name tag for him, and then he says, so he can arrange a meeting for him, and then he says Bond, and then there's a pause, and he just says James Bond. And then,
that was kind of clever.
Yeah. Because it's not that common of a way to address yourself.
Well, the whole thing that a lot of people miss is that's from Dr. No, is from his intro scene. Is he only says that
because I know, but
the woman introduces herself that way. It's just a funny thing that a lot of people who have never seen Dr. No, like they know the catchphrase, but they don't get the context behind it. It's just one of those things that I don't think they even knew it was going to become that popular. But then after Dr. No, everyone was just like, oh, Bond, James Bond. So it's one of those funny things. It's like, I'll be back from Terminator, like you don't know what the famous line's going to be in your movie.
Yeah, I know, but that second in Casino Royale when he's at a bar and he's all frazzled and he says, "I'll have a dry martini," and the guy says, "Would you like it shaken or stirred?" And he says, "Do I look like I give a damn?"
I love that moment.
Yeah.
There's one more villain we haven't talked about yet. Before we get to Malik, how fun was Billy Magnuson as Logan Ash? I said before how the CIA is almost never treated as like the good guys, but this bastard, I knew something was off with him the second that Bond addresses how he like smiles too much. I'm like, something's up with him.
Yeah, when you're a
He's
super
all
spy,
right.
if someone's smiling too much, that means they're hiding something.
Yep.
It's a telltale sign.
All right, now
Yeah, and especially when they went to the boat, I just knew. I was like, well, that guy's definitely. If I didn't think he was evil before, I definitely know he is evil now because this is the setup for where you kill Felix and you kill Bond and you run off and no one knows they're dead. It's of course he's evil.
Yeah, it's the perfect place to off someone, like in the middle of nowhere where nobody knows where you are. But yeah, I think we should probably talk about the main villain. Rami Malek plays Lucifer Safin, a terrorist leader on a mission against Spectre of all people, who later becomes Bond's new adversary by coming into conflict with him and Madison Swan. For some reason, like I think like when the first trailer dropped, people thought that this was like the new version of Dr. No, at least from what I remember. But he is definitely, if nothing else, he is definitely a unique villain. I don't think we've quite seen anyone like him, or with his whatever exactly his plan was.
Yeah, his plan was to launch this bioweapon that infected people like a virus that coded their DNA, which would make it lethal to them. So, like, in the same way, he is kind of committing mass genocide.
And all in the interest of saving the world, because that's kind of the new trend of villains these days. The only thing I don't really like about his casting is I feel like they probably should have gotten a somewhat older actor. And I only say that because it takes a little bit of suspension of disbelief that that he would still be this relatively young back when he killed, like, I don't know, it doesn't look like he aged all that much between the time that he killed Madeline's mother and however many years later.
Yeah, because Madeline's like a little girl when it happens, and it feels like she aged, but he didn't. Like, did he freeze himself in time? Maybe, I don't know. That wouldn't be the first time a Bond villain did something strange like that. So
True. But I thought the performance, it's like his performance was great. He definitely brought a like a weird, very off kilter, creepy energy to the character, and that works. It's just the age thing. I had a hard time getting past that. Any other notable performances that that we should mention?
Me, I felt like Malik was the weak point of the film for me, honestly. The age a bit, but I felt like he's in the opening scene, and even though things he's doing are affecting the plot throughout. Until the third act, he just has no presence in the film, which is so weird because Bond villains usually always have a presence in the movies. Even if you look at Dr. No, Dr. No doesn't make a physical appearance until the last act of the movie, but there's moments when you hear his voice and you get this threatening feeling that like, oh, Dr. No is trying to kill Bond, he's trying to do all this stuff. Whereas here it's like, well, first we think it's Blofeld doing everything, and then we don't know who's doing it, and then it's this guy, and then he's kind of just there, and he just acts weird. Like with the kid, like you feel like, oh, that's gonna be the thing. Like Bond's gonna have to like save the girl from him, and then she just like kind of lightly pushes him, and then he's like, "You don't want my protection," and then just walks away. I'm like, that like 006, Alex Trevelyan would have kept that little girl with him until the last possible second. Like, come on, Arthur Goldfinger wouldn't have let her go. Why? What is this? He's whenever I've talked to people about this movie since seeing it, I go, he's the weak point of the movie for me. I don't know how I would rewrite him to work in the film as is, but yeah, he's definitely not on the high list of Bond villains for me.
Yeah, that's fair. I've been trying to think of like a better villain for this story, and it's tough because you could have made it just like Blofeld again, but now he's like more behind the scenes. But I don't know. This is just a tough one. It kind of makes sense though from a narrative perspective that like, okay, yeah, we should probably address what happened to Madeline's family at some point, and then eventually tie in how that connects to Spectre and Blofeld and everything. But I can also see how Malik's character, compared to Lashif, compared to even Green from Quantum of Solace, I think was a more memorable villain than Saffron.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Jacob, your thoughts on the villain?
I thought Rami Malek gave a memorable performance. I thought I appreciate this role from Rami Malek better than I did in The Little Things. He was really miscast in that. Have you guys seen The Little Things?
I haven't.
That was that really unmemorable like crime thriller thing. He does better when he's over the top, like in Bo Rap.
Yeah, I mean,
he was kind of basically born to play a Bond villain.
Yeah, I guess I can at least understand why he was.
Yeah, he got under my skin too when he was going into that garden with Bond and Madeline's daughter. In a way, like basically treating her, and he was holding vials of their bloods, basically saying that I own you now. So yeah, he gets more in the face of Bond and his allies than I think other Bond villains have, except maybe Blofeld as Christoph Waltz. Like it's more about like the more personal stakes with these Craig films than any other the previous ones, and I think Rami Malek is a good addition to that.
I think in general that's probably why I connect so well with the Craig era, is that even as like the external stakes are elevated, like the villains always have like some sort of personal connection to our hero. The one exception is though Casino Royale, because yeah, while Vesper while Vesper does like betray Bond to some extent, like Lashif is just a guy who, he's just a guy doing evil things because money and power. It's Mr. White though that Bond has like the vendetta against. But every other villain has like some sort of personal connection. And I think the one who does the best job is Silva in that regard.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think he's probably the best of the Craig era because he starts off with his vendettas with M, but then throughout the movie, he sort of forms his own sort of antagonistic relationship with Bond, which is why the third act works because now he's both of their villains instead of just M's. So yeah, I would say he's probably the best.
Hell, Rami Malek Safin is such a personal villain that he manipulates Madeline during a therapy session.
Yeah, that scene was definitely interesting.
There's a real Joker Harley Quinn thing going on.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. It's funny how there's a lot of Batman influence in like in the James Bond franchise, and
yeah, like
and kind of vice versa.
Yeah, Salva. He wants to. He wanted to be captured. Where have we heard that from?
Yeah, that's the Dark Knight easily.
Yeah. Well, I think the thing with Batman and Bond, Mike, just to the point you brought up, and I've talked about this before. Both of these franchises have, if you want to talk about movies, they've both been around since the 60s. They've been running for over 50 years. And you don't stick around for over 50 years if you don't continue to sort of evolve and update and change. And they both have really silly times and they both have really dark times, which is why I feel like whenever there's a new iteration of either of those characters, you're not quite sure. Like this Robert Pattinson, like it could be maybe the best interpretation of Batman, or it could kind of suck. Who knows? But that is kind of the fun of following these franchises for a long time.
That's true, and of course they do probably have the most memorable rogues galleries.
True. Yeah. Batman's Rogue Gallery against Bonds. How has that not been a comic book yet? How have we not seen Joker team up with Blofeld and then Bond to Batman? I want to see that now.
Oh man, me too.
Oh man, they have James Bond comic books. It can happen.
I would love to see that in the future.
If Batman can team up with the Ninja Turtles, I don't see why Bond's off the table.
Batman teamed up with Scooby-Doo, okay? James Bond solves mysteries as well. It works.
Yeah.
See? There you go. Let's see. What else is there to talk about? Because this...
Can we talk about the Billie Eilish song, please?
Yeah. I think my general thoughts on all of the openings is that Chris Cornell's "You Know My Name" is probably my favorite. But I kind of feel the same way about Eilish's theme as I do "Writing on the Wall" from Spectre. I'm not the biggest fan of either artist, but I think these two are great examples of just how well those songs are kind of woven into the score.
I argue that No Time to Die is better than Writing on the Wall because
I definitely agree there. I'm just saying in general, what I like about both songs is just how they're woven into the score, and I think Hans Zimmer's score.
That's really common among Bond movies.
Yep.
But The reason why I personally prefer No Time to Die over writing is because it commits more to like being this really melancholy song. Like the Bond themes tend to be pretty operatic and to be pretty bombastic, and yet it's pretty jarring to hear one just this sad, and just this quiet, you know. But it's just like guys, I gotta tell you, this song came out in February 2020. Don't ask me how, but I managed to avoid this song for about 20 months. About
Impressive.
I did as well. I said when it came out, I said I want to hear like Skyfall, like Rains on the Wall. I will hear the theme when I see
I
the
think
opening
that's the
titles.
best
That's how
way.
it's meant to be.
Yeah, I
And
think that's the best way to hear an original song in a movie. It's just within the context of it, like
well, especially James Bond openings, like that's the music and the visuals. It's really one of the last franchises that still has interesting openings. Most movies don't even have opening credits anymore, really, but Bond always does. I thought it was a solid song. It's not my favorite of the Craig era. I still give that to Skyfall, and it's definitely not my favorite compared to stuff like Goldfinger, Goldeneye, License to Kill, For Your Eyes Only. Living Daylights is another great classic one. But it was good. I don't really listen to Billie Eilish. My siblings do, so I know her music, but I'm not like a huge fan of hers. But it was a solid enough song.
Yeah, that's kind of where I stand too. I'm not the biggest Billie Eilish fan. I don't hate her or anything. It's just not quite my cup of tea, but I love Hans Zimmer and I love like the orchestration and just a lot of his score for this film gave the movie like that big epic bombastic energy. There's only like maybe one or two moments where the music does kind of sound a little too similar to some of his previous works. There's one track that sounds like it's basically a slowed down version of a track from Batman Begins. But other than that, I thought Zimmer's score was excellent.
Well, Hans Zimmer is like Danny Elfman. If you watch enough of his movies, you'll see similar sort of beats repeated in them. It's unfortunate, but it's like when your film composer gets used so much, you only have so many, musical themes in your head that you can create, and sometimes you don't even know you're doing it. Like I don't think he intentionally did that, but I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, like even Williams, like Williams, Giacchino, the bigger name composers. Once you've heard like one or two of their scores, pretty much you can pick out their style in almost everything.
Can we talk about anyway, I am so proud of myself that I actually heard this, but I got a glimpse of the Honor Majesty Secret Service score when Bond is talking with M by the river, and I heard did you hear that, Matthew?
Yes.
I did
Yeah.
too. I know you don't recognize that one, Mike, but
I'm actually familiar just vaguely with that theme.
What about and they actually play the Louis Armstrong song from Secret Service, We Have All the Time in the World.
Yeah, I
love that.
Yeah, it was interesting. Maybe it's because Majesty Secret Service has the relationship with Tracy being such an integral part of the plot that maybe that's why they wanted to do some callbacks to that film, considering Bond and Madeline's relationship is very important to this film.
The opening credits even started with the dots from Dr. No's opening credits, which I loved.
Oh, I love that too. That was great, especially with it being Craig's last outing to just kind of be like, hey, it's our last chance to connect them back to the old school stuff. I thought that was fantastic.
Yeah, all those little Easter eggs are a lot of fun to pick out. I think just in general, well, like one of the best things about these modern James Bond movies is that the franchise, like we talked about before, the franchise has been around for over 50 years. That there's like so much material that you can cherry pick from, and like sneak into the newer films.
Oh man, that's right. Yeah, actually, next year is going to be its 60th anniversary.
How crazy is that?
That is awesome, but it also
And next year they'll be announcing. What gone?
It makes me feel old because I remember when it was the 50th anniversary and I was a freshman in high school, and now it's going to be the 60th anniversary next year, and I'm so far from high school. Oh God.
And also next year they'll be announcing the 7th 007. The 7th 007. Think about that.
Yeah.
They need to they should have like some sort of like special event to announce the 7th
Comic-Con. They should do something at Comic-Con.
They should do a Bond con. Everybody shows up wearing different suits.
Yeah. And like George Lazenby, Timothy Dalton, Pierce Brosnan to congratulate the actor. Like they should announce Pierce Brosnan and that, where he just walks to the screen to the camera and says, "You're expecting someone else," because everyone was hoping for Brosnan to play Bond because of Remington Steele.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, originally he was after Roger Moore. They wanted Pierce Brosnan, but he was tied up doing Remington Steele because 80s TV was, man, when you did 80s TV, you just did 80s TV, which is why they got Dalton. And then originally GoldenEye was supposed to be Dalton's last film, but because of legal stuff, it took a lot longer. And then they finally got Pierce Brosnan.
Out of curiosity, man, what do you think about George Lazenby?
I really enjoyed George Lazenby. Honor Majesty's Secret Service. It's a great movie. He's not my favorite, but he's a good Bond. He's a solid Bond.
Yeah, I think a lot of people say his performance was kind of wooden. I saw it as just him being chill. That's Bond to me in the way he also, to me, he kind of kept that vulnerability of Bond. He gave more emotion than Connery ever could have, because and the Connery movies that kind of sandwiched that one, You Only Live Twice and Diamonds Are Forever, you could tell Connery was done with the franchise. With that, and Lazenby, and the ending of Honor Majesty's Secret Service, I honestly don't think Connery could have pulled that off. I think only Lazenby could.
I don't know if I totally agree with that, because if you look at movies like Untouchables,
just that role,
Connery's got it in him.
It's mostly based on that role, that specific role, that I don't know if Connery would have as much. But anyway, there's this great documentary on Hulu called Becoming Bond, that talks about how Lazenby basically, he was a car dealer in Australia, and is only acting. He was a model in Britain, and he only did a chocolate commercial before he got the part. And he only got that because he lied his way into it.
That's actually a pretty funny story.
It's a great documentary.
Yeah. What?
No, I was saying it's a great documentary.
Becoming Bond.
Check it out, Mike. I think you'll really be fascinated by it.
He only agreed to play Bond once. He turned down a 7-picture contract with United Artists because for one thing, his agent told him that spy movies will become obsolete in the 70s.
Boy, how wrong
Because
the agent became.
69 was the year that Easy Rider came out, and that was the movie for that boomer generation, the flower child hippie sort of vibe. And so he thought that no one's gonna just, and also the contract that he was given was like 7 pages thick. Like it was a demanding contract, and he just didn't want to do it. He didn't want even. He was so rebellious. He even had a beard at the premiere.
Yeah, Bond contracts have always been crazy. Like Pierce Brosnan's contract did not allow him to wear a tuxedo in any other movie. It's the reason why in the Thomas Crown Affair, even though everyone else is wearing a tuxedo in the dance scene, he's not, and it's because his Bond contract did not allow him to wear a tux in any other movie.
Oh, that's you know what that kind of reminds me of? It reminds me of pretty much everything surrounding the filming of Mission Impossible Fallout and Justice League. How Paramount wouldn't let Cavill shave his mustache.
Yeah, that infamous little yeah. I don't know if Lazenby, he probably wouldn't have had fun playing Bond, because even Craig just a few years back said he would rather dash his wrists than play Bond again.
Yeah, I remember those comments, and
he's been injured a couple of times too, so it's not that surprising that he would say that.
Yeah, the role definitely it was pretty taxing on Craig. I was watching like Fandango's interviews with like the cast and the producers, and Barbara Broccoli was talking about how after Craig was cast in the mid 2000s, like Daniel Craig went through like a complete body transformation. He really gave like everything to this role. So I hope he gets like all the rest that he deserves after
his video. There's a video there's a video that went viral about his last day on set playing Bond, and he's giving this speech to the whole cast and crew, and you can tell he was getting emotional.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, so it all worked down the long run.
So one thing we should mention is how this movie ends, and why I think there was no other way to close out his arc than how this movie ends things. And yeah, Daniel Craig's Bond, he bites it, sacrifices himself to save his family and save the world from this biological warfare.
Yeah. So Rami Malek, his whole motivation was to bring a new world order to it, because he said that people want oblivion, so they could have. He says that people want control of their lives. People don't really want free will and individuality like they claim to do, and yeah, that says something that even for that seems like such a cliche motivation, but in here it somehow works, and I can't really explain that. But anyway, about his death, this confirms that whoever plays Bond next, it's gonna be a reboot.
Oh, obviously.
And if this means, it'd be cool if they get Ray Fiennes to play M like they did with Judi Dench. Like,
Oh,
oh, you're not getting away that easily.
that's the one downside to like the one downside to having to get a new actor to play Bond is I don't want to lose the core ensemble, because I really liked you know, the combination of Ben Whishaw as Q, Naomi Harris as Eve Moneypenny. I even liked Rory Kinnear's Bill Tanner. He was always kind of my favorite supporting role in all of these movies. And it would be a shame. It would be a shame if if none of these people get to return.
Yeah, and that's the difficult thing with how the movie ends is it's hard. I mean, obviously you could do it, but it would be a little weird because like the other Bond movies, there are slight connections between them which allow you to just be like, oh, these are just the same characters coming back. That's why you're able to have the same cue throughout Roger Moore and Timothy Dalton and Pierce Brosnan.
Yeah.
I'd love to see him as well. It's just with how this movie ends with Bond, it'd be hard to do that, and that's why I feel like the next Bond is going to be an even more of a reboot than Casino Royale, because Casino Royale at least kept Judi Dench around.
True. Well, they probably won't introduce these characters right off the bat, though. That's gonna take a little more because they couldn't find a Q. Q wasn't in Casino Royale. Neither was Miss Moneypenny, and so that may take a little while. So yeah, now, I do like just to give my thoughts. I really do love Ben Whishaw as Q. Like no one can top Desmond Llewellyn, of course, but Ben Whishaw, he just brings this adorable energy to it. Like I love it also when he laughs at his own jokes. Like there's a bit in a Spectre where the Ashton Martin, like all that was covered was a stealing wheel. He said, I believe I told you 007 to bring this back in one piece.
Not bring back one piece.
And then he snickers to himself.
Now something I found on Twitter recently was Idris Elba saying I'm not going to be the next Bond. But I couldn't get out of my head the thought of Elba being the next M, and how cool that would be.
Basically, he'd be reprising his role in Zootopia,
or Pacific Rim.
Yeah, I was gonna say Pacific Rim showed that he could be this sort of commander. That's a really good it's a really good choice for a new M. That's a really good choice, and to still have him be a part of, because I agree. I think he's too old, because the next Bond is not going to be it. Look, in a post MCU world, no Bond is going to do like 1 or 2 movies. They're doing like 3 to 5. That's just how these franchises work. Because I've always said since I saw First Class, I wanted Michael Fassbender to be the next Bond, but he's too old now. He's not going to be Bond. But that being M, I would watch that. I'd love to see Idris Elba as M.
So just for context, as of today, Daniel Craig is 53 years old. If we subtract 15 years, around the time that Casino Royale came out, he was still even like, I want to say 38 at most. This new Bond is going to be younger. He's probably going to be in his 20s, like maybe like 32 at the oldest.
Yeah, I think he's definitely going to be.
Connery was 32 when he was cast.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
anywhere between like 30, 35, I think
Dev
is the
Patel
age
is
range.
31 right now. Dev Patel is 31.
I was getting there. Dev Patel, it's either Dev Patel or let's see, how old is Richard Madden? Yeah, Richard Madden is 35. So he's like right at the edge of like that age range. But I think either Dev Patel or Riz Ahmed right now are my two top candidates. What about you guys?
I mean, I I haven't really given much thought to this, but when I had to finally give up the Michael Fassbender, because I'm one of the few people who saw Man from Uncle, and since clearly DC's not doing anything with him, Henry Cavill, I think he'd be great. He'd be able to bring back that suaveness of Bond. I feel like I'd love to see him.
Yeah, Cavill's the one that a lot of people want to be Bond. And yeah, speaking of Man from Uncle, he can rock a tuxedo.
Yeah.
I get mainly because his name came up today. So, and also I haven't heard this recommendation, but I can see Will Poulter. Will Poulter, he kind of has that intensity. He kind of does have that coarseness, that roughness to Bond. I can see that.
Yeah, he does kind of have he kind of has that like that Timothy Dalton like smile whenever whenever he gets like that, that very shit-eating grin. He kind of reminds me a little bit of Dalton in that regard. Yeah, I think ultimately I think who they're going to cast is like a complete unknown, which is probably for the best. But
yeah, I mean, Daniel Craig was, he was in stuff like Munich and what was it, the first Tomb Raider movie. So he had been in movies, but he wasn't really much of anybody.
He was a character actor before he became Bond.
Yeah, and you look at like Sean Connery was in Darby O'Gill and the Little People. Like he wasn't this tough guy, and so it's I think there hasn't been a bad actor to play Bond. Are there Bonds that I don't like as much as others? Yes, but I think they've done a really solid job. So whoever is the next Bond, it'll be the right choice. Even if he I still remember people getting mad because Daniel Craig was blonde and blue-eyed, because that's not James Bond. That happened.
I forgot all about the Craig backlash.
Yeah, he got off the boat and a bunch of people are just like, "What is this?" Which is just like, really? You think after you saw like 5 different actors play Batman, you'd be a little bit more open to someone else. Like in the comic books, Bruce Wayne isn't blonde, but Val Kilmer is still my favorite Bruce Wayne. It's fine. It's okay.
Yeah, like something that kind of frustrates me when it comes to like fan casting is oftentimes like unless your profession is like a casting director, most like general audiences have like they have the most boring preferences. Like it it always amuses me when people say like, this actor should be Lex Luthor because he was bald once, and not for any other reason.
Fan castings, I always have a problem with, and I know we just did this, but like, I don't really put much thought into it. Like, literally, the reason why I always said Michael Fassbender is because the scene from First Class, when he goes into the German bar, felt like it felt like a melding between like a Dalton and Connery movie moment. But for the most part, I think fan castings are so dangerous because if you sit there and you say, "Oh, I want Riz Ahmed, or Idris Elba, or whoever," there's a good choice. And then when the choice comes, a lot of times people don't give them the opportunity because they're like, "Oh, Riz
I
Ahmed
got
could have done this so much better."
I got another one that I haven't heard. I got a casting decision for Bond. If they go the route of this is a young Bond who finds himself in a man's world, who kind of like he's unprepared for this sort of thing. I go with Asa Butterfield.
Huh.
Yeah, after seeing him in Hugo, he kind of has that innocence that to his eyes, that kind of fragility, I can see that working. How about you guys?
That one didn't cross my mind, but if you want to take the franchise in a different direction, he has like he is like sort of the antithesis of Daniel Craig, where he was a little bit more like he was a little bit more seasoned and had a rough exterior. But Butterfield,
He's more of a brutish Bond than the Bond normally is. That was
right?
What about
something about him.
Here's another one. How about Freddie Highmore? I'm kind of spitballing at this point because maybe I don't know. Maybe a little too He'd be the friendly Bond.
Yeah, he
I think
he seems a little too soft to be Bond.
I think he may be closer to Brosnan's Bond, actually.
Casting Bond is tough because we've already seen a couple different variations, like with the like the previous actors. Each one kind of brings something different to the table.
Yeah. To me, Connery, he has the sex appeal. Lazenby has that laid back vibe. Moore has that goofy vibe. Dalton has that intense vibe. Brosnan has that suave vibe, and Craig has that complex vibe.
Yeah, and as we said before, because this franchise has been around for going on 60 years, there's an era for everyone.
And the actors are also they're at the mercy of the producers. Like For Your Eyes Only, it's my favorite Roger Moore movie, but Roger Moore actually didn't really like doing that one because in that movie came out in 81, and they wanted to take the series to a more sort of like darker tone, and so Roger Moore just didn't have fun with that, and that's the reason why the last three he did, or last no, it's last two. He did Octopussy and View to a Kill. They went back to being more like Spy Who Loved Me and Moonraker because Moore just wasn't comfortable being a more serious Bond, even though that's what the producers wanted. So it really depends on kind of not just who the new Bond is, but also what the producers want this new iteration to be. Because now we've had sort of like I said, the Batman Begins sort of like more grounded series. So who knows? Maybe they'll take it back to a more Roger Moore era, and James Bond will go back into space, or who knows? Maybe it will be a musical Bond, and he'll sing throughout the entire thing. Who knows? It'll be 60 years next year. Bond's been around, so they haven't done that one yet. That'd be weird, though.
Moonraker just happens to also be the one with the double take pigeon. Remember that, Matt?
I haven't watched Moonraker. Moonraker.
There's a part where Bond, he's in Siena, Italy, and he's riding a gondola on an inflatable raft throughout the city, and people are like gawking at him, like, what the hell? And then there's a close-up of a pigeon, and it's edited to look like that it's doing a double take.
Oh
wow!
Like it's a close-up, like it blinks and then it just turns its head, like what? Huh?
Yeah, That's the more for you.
Yeah, you're gonna love it when they go that far.
Rest in peace, Roger. But man, it's not really my thing, man. Ugh.
Honestly, how can you not gonna? I can't help but smile at that a little bit. Like, wow, really?
Fun fact about Moonraker, this like the reason why this movie came out when it did is obviously because of Star Wars, but
Yeah.
this was supposed to come out before. Well, for your eyes only was supposed to be before
Unless I'm
Moonraker.
mistaken, I think Spy Who Loved Me ends with James Bond will return, and I think it was Octopus.
Yeah,
Was
and
supposed
that
to
was
be the
for
next
your eyes
one.
only.
But then Star Wars came out, and they went, "Hey guys, everybody loves space. Get James Bond up." Like the Moonraker movie has very little to do with the book. It essentially they just looked and they were like, "Hey, that has moon in it. We could do space."
Yeah. By the way, my first Bond movie, I didn't get around to saying this, but my first Bond was The Man with the Golden Gun, and
Ooh,
Mike, if you know me, you know exactly why.
Oh,
Christopher Lee.
Yeah, I figured.
Christopher Lee is my favorite actor ever, Matt.
Well, Christopher Lee was also the inspiration for James Bond, so.
No, well, he was Ian Fleming's cousin.
Yeah, and he was a spy in World War II, and so Ian Fleming based a lot of the character on him. It's very similar to how Han Solo was based on Francis Ford Coppola. So
that tracks.
That's a solid.
Yeah.
That's a solid choice. Yeah, Man with Golden Gun is a really good one, but Christopher Lee is also just an insanely incredible actor.
Man with Golden Gun is not even one of my favorite Bond movies, but it's
one of the best.
Nowhere near one of my favorites, but he makes that movie work, man. And it's Christopher Lee.
Yeah, my first Bond movie. I don't even think I said my first Bond movie was Tomorrow Never Dies. That was my intro to James Bond.
That was kind of a silly one too. That was the one where Jonathan Pryce was a media mogul who wanted to start World War III because of ratings.
Yeah, he wanted to take over the world with fake news.
Oh wow.
James Bond was ahead of its time. Yeah, he would manipulate like headlines and stuff like that. So
I think I was introduced to the GoldenEye video game before I saw the movie.
Yeah.
So yeah, GoldenEye is probably, I think for a lot of my generation, GoldenEye was like the James Bond for most of us.
Well, that's my favorite Bond movie, so that's a solid choice.
Now we are bringing this podcast to a close. So any final thoughts on No Time to Die, and I guess by extension the Daniel Craig era?
I felt like No Time to Die. It was a really solid movie. As far as a Bond movie, like I said, I think the villain lacked a lot of presence in the film. I also think that the ending worked for the Craig era as being one story, but in the large scope of James Bond, it's a risk. I have to watch the movie again before I could decide if I really like it or not, if that makes any sense. And ultimately, the Craig era, they're good movies. They're just not great James Bond movies to me, which makes no sense. And I already
it does make sense. Like if you judge it on different terms, that is.
I'm trying to, because I watched John Campio's review with Robert Byron Burnett. And I'm trying to just judge this movie as its own movie. I had a really good time with it. I felt like it felt very much like Logan, which was a great cap to Hugh Jackman's tenure as Wolverine. This was a great cap to Daniel Craig's time as Bond, and I feel like I have to watch Skyfall again. But this could be a contender for being my favorite Daniel Craig era Bond movie. I felt like the relationship with Madeline was fantastic. Moneypenny, Q, and they're all still fantastic. Felix in a small part, and our people like Ante Armas. They filled it out really well. And for a 3-hour movie, I didn't feel the time. I never caught myself looking
Yeah,
at my
the
watch.
pacing was great in this.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
yeah.
I always there's like two ends of the spectrum for 3-hour movies for me. It's like you have your Braveheart, your Gladiator, and then your Titanic. This one for me, it's a Braveheart Gladiator. It's 3 hours, but I don't care. I don't look at my watch. So yeah, so all in all, solid time of the movies. And if you could see it in Dolby, see it in Dolby because it was incredible.
Hell yeah. I will always support a movie in Dolby. Jacob, your final thoughts?
I agree with Manel on this. It was what I want from a Bond movie, plus a satisfying end to its own little series. It's got class, it's got thrills, it's got heart. Check it out.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of that. As far as where I would rank it on my Craig list, I still have Casino Royale at number 1. Number 2 is Skyfall. Number 3 is No Time to Die. Then Spectre, then Quantum of Solace. But I think on the whole, the entire arc is one that I think is very enjoyable. And this movie gives you everything that you've wanted to see in a James Bond movie, from like the spectacle of the classic films to the more hard-hitting action from the previous Craig films. Well, we did have some problems with the villain, I still think there's enough good in this movie to warrant seeing it on the big screen. And I hope everyone who feels safe enough to do so gets to see this in theaters as soon as they can. But yeah, this was a fun discussion. I'm glad I got you guys on board for this episode.
Me too.
Before we get out of here, Matt, where can everyone find you online?
You guys can find me on Twitter at Kearns_Matthew. You can find me, excuse me, on 2 YouTube channels I do work. My personal channel is Matt Movies 611, and I also work with the YouTube channel Take 3 Productions, and that's where majority of my my work can be found. I host. I just started a new one, so it's not 2 anymore, it's 3. I host a video essay series called Second Look, where I take a look at a movie that I love, that I feel is either, talked in a bad way about, or I feel is under talked about, and I talk about why I love it. I also have another show called The Fandom Podcast, which is where me and a guest, or I've started doing just solo episodes. We take a look at one topic. We talk about all the things within that. And I also do a new show that started just a few months ago called Simple Tricks and Nonsense, where myself and my co-host Abe, we talk about whatever we want to talk about. It's a monthly series, so it's a lot of fun. Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. Jacob, where can people find you?
You can find me on Facebook and Twitter on Joe Crable, Krehbiel. I'm also part of the Renegade Pop Culture Facebook group. I have my own letterboxd account, Streamin Demon.
And you guys can find me on Twitter at CaptainK42. You can check out my quick thoughts on letterboxd.com/CoachK42. And you can find me in all the various Facebook groups just at my name. You can check out Renegade Pop Culture on Facebook and Twitter at Ren Pop Culture. Look for us on Podchaser. Listen to all of our podcasts on Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen. And you can find Cameron and I on an episode of Gone with the Wind on Take 3 Productions. And last but not least, everything can be found at renegadepopculture.com. Need escape? So do we. That'll do it for this episode of Renegade Marquee. We will catch you guys later. Peace out.
So long.